This week's Torah portion is called Balak, and it contains this topsy-turvy story about a seer who cannot see, a talking donkey long before Shrek. The king of Moab, whose name is Balak, is worried about what the Israelites have done, and he orders the prophet Balaam to curse the Israelites. But God tells Balaam not to curse the Israelites, for they are blessed. So Balaam sends the dignitaries away, and they return. And this time God tells Balaam that he can go with them. So Balaam sets off with his ass, and along the way God becomes angry and sends an angel to stop him. When the ass sees the angel with a drawn sword in his way, she stops and refuses to go on. Balaam, the alleged seer or prophet, can't see the angel, so he beats the ass, and the ass squeezes Balaam's foot against a wall, with the ass finally laying down and Balaam beating her with a stick. Then God puts words in the donkey's mouth, and she speaks. "What have I done to you that you have beaten me these 3 times?" she says. Only then does the Eternal open Balaam's eyes to the angel. There are all kinds of traditional explanations for how to make sense of this story. In A Guide for the Perplexed, Moses explains that this story must have happened in a vision or a dream rather than reality. Lusato, a 19th century Italian commentator, notes that the usual word for speak, or daber in Hebrew, isn't used here. So perhaps the donkey made a braying sound, but it was understood by Balaam, and that too was a miracle. The fact of the matter is, however, the Torah explicitly says that a donkey, a she-ass, sees the angel when the prophet doesn't. Any of us with pets know that sometimes they can perceive things that we can't. My husband tells a story about growing up when his dog DuPont one night was barking his head off, and everybody was in their bedrooms and didn't want to get up. But as it turned out, in the morning, they learned that all the laundry in their laundry room had been stolen. Their house had been broken into. Sometimes there's a message for us, even from an animal, but we're too distracted or lazy or tired to hear it. An important message tucked away in this story is teaching us to pay attention. Mysteries and messages come in all kinds of unusual places. Balaam couldn't see the angel because he was intent on doing Balak's work. His mission blinded him to the obvious. In Hebrew, the word for angel is malach, which also means messenger. In our tradition, angels often appear to send us God's messages. Yet how often does God send us messages, but we are blind to them? We go about our business with blinders on, just as Balaam did, blind to the signals, people, or opportunities that come our way. They come in the form of challenges that force us out of our comfort zone and push us to overcome what we believe are our limits. Sometimes they are an outstretched hand or loving words of guidance, and sometimes they are in the form of a new idea or creative thought or budding relationship. It's strange to say, but in this case, we are meant to be like the ass or the donkey who was able to sense the presence of God's angel, rather than the prophet who was blind to God. A final note about the portion is that there were 4 times that Balaam tried or intended to curse the Israelites, but words of blessing emerged from his mouth. The 3rd time evoked the most memorable words. As Balaam is standing on the hills of Moab overlooking the tents of the Israelites, God turns his words of curse into blessing. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. Tradition teaches that when Balaam gazed upon the tents of the Israelites, God enabled him to see the blessing. May we too, as we go forth, keep our eyes open to the positive, the potential, the hope that each new day brings. Even when we feel negative or narrow, may God help us to shift our gaze and see instead the promise of something green and fresh and beautiful. Kenny Hiratzon, may it be God's will. Amen.